Hello friends, my name is Lucky Srivastav. I am a final year student of NIT Surat Computer Engineering Department. I recently got placed in Ittiam systems, so here I am to share my interview experience with you all. So it consisted of 3 rounds. The first one was written test. It was basically a pen paper test, and the second round was technical PI, and following this was the third round, which was a HR round. So about round 1, it was a written test. Basically it was a pen and paper written test. There were 20 MCQs along with negative markings. Out of those, 10 were from technical aptitude and 10 were from quantitative aptitude section. So from quantitative aptitude section, questions were from ratio proportion, mixtures, alligation, time and work, speed and distance, and few questions were from mathematical reasoning section. Like it was based on quantifiers like universal quantifier, that is for all, and existential quantifier, that is there exists. So these questions can be found in discrete mathematics sections of your curriculum. And about the technical section, there are also 10 questions from this section. So these questions basically consisted of questions like output was to be provided. There was given us C code and we have to provide the output of that. And these questions were basically based on the storage classes like register, auto, static, extern. So you don't need to have basic knowledge of storage classes in C. And also questions were from OS, like the question was based on fork, and the questions were also from bitwise operators. So there were many questions from bitwise operators. And one question was also from computer organization section. This question was based on the big and little Indian system concept. So after first round, 15 out of 120 students were selected for the second round. The trick for this round is getting only 8 to 12 questions will do the trick for you. And also remember to attempt only those questions which you definitely know the answer, because the interviewer in the second round was checking it. So now moving on to the second round, which was technical PI round. In this round, he asked me questions basically from OS and memory layout in C program. So the first question he asked me was from written paper only. It was a question from fork. So I answered him accordingly as I written in the written test paper. Next, he asked me questions from threads, processes. He also asked me the differences of process and threads. He then, continuing on this question only, he asked me a question on multi-threading concept. Actually the question was like this. A process is given. If a process is spawning multiple threads, then what section they share? Like different threads of each of a single process, what section or like address space or what section they share, that I had to answer. So I answered it. Next, he asked me question on basic C coding. It was a swap program in C. So I written it, and then he asked me difference on call by value and call by pointer. And then he asked me a question on the variation of that swap program only. And these variations were basically based on the pointer types, pointer compatibility and casting types. And in this case, we had to remember about the special case of void pointer. Next, moving on, there was a question in which he presented a function to me. This was an exchange function. It contained parameters like source, destination and size of the source. Now it was a memory area given. The source SRC was given and its size was known. Now what we have to do, it was filled with characters. So we have to copy the characters from SRC memory area to the destination memory area, but of unknown area. So this I answered. Now he asked me the question, that is the variation of this question only. He asked me that now the memory area, the source and destination are overlapping. That is in the same memory area is there. Source is starting from this portion to this portion, and the destination is starting in a midway from the source to the last way of the destination. So now in this, how will you copy the content of source from to the destination, and also keeping in mind that the portion between destination and source end, it should not be lost. So I answered it using a for loop in the reverse manner. So it was a pretty simple question. Now moving on to the next question, he asked me a question on memory layout of C program. Actually, it can memory layout of C program, like how the variables and how each instruction that we write in a C program, where they are stored in memory. So this was about memory layout of C program. And next, he gave me a question like a C program, and he asked me like these variables, these instructions, and these functions, where will they go into the memory? That is, it was a continuation of that question only. Now, he started asking me questions on uses of each section of memory, like static, global, stack, these sections. So he mostly focused on the stack section, and he also asked me about the application of a stack section. Then he asked me difference between local static and global static variable. And then he also asked me that where in the memory they both variables will be stored. I showed it by drawing the diagram of the memory layout of any C program, which is basic. And then moving on to the next question, he asked me the brief use of static variable, which I gave, and then he also asked me a real life example that where the static variable can be used. Next question was from OS. He asked me about the critical section of a code. That is, what is the critical section of a code? And then he asked me question from mutual exclusion, and then deadlock, like that is how to avoid deadlock. And then he asked me the difference between semaphore and mutex. And in that, he also asked me that what is the use of signal and wait function. And then finally he asked me a reader-writer problem, and also asked me to write the code for it. So overall summary for this round was that you have to be thorough with the OS concepts and simple memory layout of any C program or any program. You have to be thorough with these concepts only. So that was the first round. After this round, only 2 out of 15 students went to the HR round. Now in the HR round, before HR round, we were given a form to fill, which consisted of basic questions like about yourself and about your educations and about your internship. And there was a question like, if you given a chance to do your internship again, then what one thing will you change? And there were a lot of questions based on your life experiences. Now moving on to the HR round. The HR, he started asking me questions like define your candidature. So I started my introduction. Then he interviewed me and told me that these I know from your resume. So tell me something that I don't know or that is not in your resume. So I told him about my nature and about my life experiences and how I enjoy my life. Then next he asked me basic HR questions like where do you see yourself in 5 years, and why do you want to join this company, and these type of questions. But at some moment he told me to switch the position. That is, he told me to be the interviewer and he himself become the student, and he told me to ask question from him. So I started asking question from him, and it went around 25 to 30 minutes. And after that he again asked me a question about confirmation of location, and that was much. And this HR round was pretty much about discussion only. It was a long discussion between me and the interviewer. So it was really cool and really okay. But one thing to notice that he was pointing about my future, about further studies. So if you even want to do a further study, then you should convince him that for right now I want to do job and job only. So that is the main point to keep in mind. So this was all about the HR round and my interview experience. I have also shared my interview experience in Geeks for Geeks. You can look for this in the link given below. And thank you all for listening me. Best of luck for your preparation.